This one's not going to be as positive as I hoped it would be, but I do like the shirt. The shirt's nice.
Thank you very much. I thought I'd bring some sort of positive reflection of this franchise in some shape or way.
For those of you who are just listening, which is 100% of you because we haven't gone to video yet, Jonah's wearing a 06-07 President's Trophy official locker room edition Sabre shirt, which is really cool. Never seen it before.
No, we haven't. We've been doing this for over a year now. This is probably the most... It's difficult. I don't know if difficult's the word to describe what this episode is going to be. Frustrating, yeah. I think exhausting. Exhausting might be the best way to put it. Don't you just feel exhausted already?
Yeah. Just it's up and down.
Recording on November the 12th, and man, my mileage with this team is already getting on me.
Yeah. I said to myself yesterday, I was like, I need a break from Buffalo sports with the Bills and the Sabres. It's just too much sometimes. Yesterday's game was so frustrating to watch, but we'll get into the details of everything. But I would say the biggest frustration I'd had with this team was the goaltending situation, and now I feel like that is the least of my concerns at this point in time because, yesterday, drop a bad game, really bad game, the Penguins game. But I'll say Luukkonen played all right. He didn't play bad. He had let in a softie, which really upset me. I don't know. It's so up and down. The Minnesota game, everyone was like, we're back. And then after the Penguins game, it's so over.
Welcome to Sabres Hockey. And welcome to this episode of the Sabre Roundtable. My name is Jonah.
And I'm Christian.
And for this installment, it's been like I said, I really don't have the word for it right now. It's just been a week in Sabres hockey, really. They start out against Carolina on Tuesday night. Come away with an overtime loss there. Pretty solid performance, though, when all is said and done. Minnesota comes to town Friday night. Buffalo gets the win, but it would be naive to say that game 9 times out of 10 they usually win. And then Saturday night, the night after, where Buffalo probably puts up their most lifeless performance of the season. Definitely felt that way. And here we are, a 1-1-1 week in the thick of the playoff race, and yet it doesn't feel as exciting as you would want it to be.
I think it's just really early in the season too. I'm not one to standings watch at this point in time just because it is so early and everything could change over the course of 2 weeks. And with what would they got? They still got like 55 games to play. Like it's so much time, and there's going to be more ups and downs. But right now, it's definitely one of those down points because they could have easily dropped 3 games. They were outplayed in Carolina, I think, most of the game. I think it's more or less, if we're looking at it from an offensive perspective, offensively, not great in Carolina. Offensively, against Minnesota, okay, but it had its moments where it was ice cold. And then Pittsburgh, awful all around. It's just painful to watch. That's my biggest gripe with this team right now. And I never thought I'd say that going from last season to now is that would be the issue.
Against Carolina, I thought it was actually a good performance, but you're spot on with the last 2. It's those right there were 2 straight performances that just gave me nothing in terms of confidence for what is supposed to be the strength of this team. It's supposed to be the offense. And it's 2 games where they were just able to generate next to nothing for the most part.
I was trying to rationalize why I think the offense has gone cold. And I came to the conclusion, and obviously correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel as though the Sabres have moved away from the fire-burning Sabres that they were last season, where it was just all gas in the offensive zone, all offense. And they've transitioned to more of a defensive style of play. Don't get me wrong, that's great. But the offense is just, it's fallen off a cliff. Like, I don't know what's going on, but something needs to be addressed, because in the offensive zone, where they can't dump and chase, they're awful at dump and chase. It's a main reason for why last year they scored as many goals in transition as they did. They're not a dump and chase team. So when they dump and chase, it immediately gets broken back out. And usually the only time they dump and chase now is out of desperation. So they can't do that. Flip to the transition game that they were playing last season that they were so good at. Teams have countered that, so now they're clogging up lanes in the neutral zone, and they can't get transitions going. They can't break into the zone properly. And when that can't happen, they lose the puck along the wall, or they lose the puck when they dump in and go and chase it. And a lot of what I've been seeing is the Sabres are getting eaten alive in the neutral zone, and they're trying to get the puck in deep. And when they do, there's usually a guy down there to meet the defenseman, but 9 times out of 10, that defenseman has won that puck battle, and that puck's got the next guy in the zone is wide open, and they all fall back. So there's not a lot of risk-taking offensively, which, again, you could have your positives and negatives with that because you're adding the defensive element to your game, but at the cost of scoring goals and mine and Jonah's personal sanity.
Currently, the Buffalo Sabres, and this is via Evolving Hockey, they rank 6th worst in the NHL in expected goals for per 60. Do you think you can try and name the 5 teams below them? Give it your best shot. 3 of them might surprise you, honestly.
In expected goals for?
Yes.
The Sharks.
Definitely, they're last.
The Blackhawks.
They are second last. 2 of these teams are actually off to red-hot starts.
The Bruins?
No, not the Bruins.
Canadians.
Nope, not the Canadians. They're actually up there.
Red Wings?
No, not the Red Wings. It's in the Atlantic. They're one of the teams is in the Atlantic.
Is it the Lightning? Man, I'm just
no.
Hot start in the Atlantic.
Well, actually, I should say 2 of the teams have hot starts, and then the other team is in the Atlantic, and they are not off to a hot start.
The Senators?
The Senators, they are 3rd worst.
So there's 2 more.
There's 2 more, both off to hot starts.
One
of them unsustainably hot start.
Oh, Vancouver.
Vancouver is 4th worst.
Bender.
Or 5th worst. And 4th, you probably won't. It'll probably take you a while to get here, so I'll say right now because you probably wouldn't expect it, but it is the New York Rangers.
Really?
Yes.
No, that would have been one of the last teams I would have guessed. That's La Violette hockey for you, though.
But think about those teams that they are right next to. The Sharks, the Blackhawks, the Senators, and the Rangers and the Canucks. Every single one of those teams has an element that sort of explains why they're there. The Sharks, the Blackhawks, bad teams in deep rebuilds. The Canucks on just a clear shooting bender, and I mean, whether or not they come down, who knows? We'll see, but it's not surprising they're down there. The Rangers, like you said, it's La Violette hockey. They don't play very high octane. And the Senators, I really don't have a clear explanation for that one, I guess, but you can pin it on someone like DJ Smith. Yeah. What's the Sabres' excuse? What's their excuse?
They don't have an excuse.
They don't.
At all.
It's the same forward group as last year, for the most part, minus injuries and whatnot. But this is largely the same group with the same head coach, and here they are in the basement, coming off of 2 lifeless performances against 2 teams that really aren't shut down defensively. I mean, the Wild and the Penguins, middle of the pack in expected goals against per 60 at 16th and 17th. But that's still no excuse that there's no answer for these putrid offensive displays. It's one of those times where the eye test, everybody collectively agrees with what they're seeing. In fact, you were seeing stats the other night. Some models had the Sabres as the better team in that game.
It's just not there.
It didn't feel like it.
No.
Collectively as a group, nobody felt like the Sabres were in that Pittsburgh game.
No. God, no. I feel like we've expressed our frustration with the offense over the past few episodes, and it's definitely reached a boiling point, and I feel like now more than ever a philosophical change needs to be made, because you're not 3-4 games into the season anymore.
You're starting to figure out who this team is. Like it's not 30 or 40 games in, but what's the one threshold everybody looks up to when talking about the playoff race? It's American Thanksgiving. What's the stat? Like, 80% of teams that are in a playoff spot come Thanksgiving, they make the playoffs.
Yeah.
By that point, that's when teams start to become what they are. And we're only 2 weeks away from that.
So they better figure it out soon, right?
And it's so frustrating because, like, they're in this playoff race. And it's not even by their own doing, really. The East is so muddled.
It's so, yeah.
It's
teams stacked on top of each other.
You expected it to be this race of powerhouse teams, and it's not that.
Not at all.
It's not. Even like your perceived contenders. Like, how many Stanley Cup picks did you see for the New Jersey Devils? And even they're struggling.
And the Leafs are struggling right now.
Tampa doesn't look unbeatable.
Tampa looks
Detroit's come down to earth. Ottawa is obviously off to a slow start.
Canadians are coming down.
There's no reason that a year like this, you should feel this. There's just a lack of confidence in this team right now. It doesn't feel like you're not going into games at this point and expecting them to
put up 4 or 5 goals.
Outclass their opponents. It feels like they're trying to win a grudge match, but they're starting the grudge match.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
No, it's not fun hockey to watch.
And they're not a bad team.
No, they're
not
a bad team.
They're just painfully mediocre right now.
So mid.
And that's not what there's no defining aspect of this team right now.
No.
Even like what's the best part of their team that we've been talking about for so long now? Their penalty kill, which is hilarious. That was like the defining trait for a few weeks. It started to come down to earth, which is not a huge deal. So their PK has been good. Their goaltending has been okay. They've gotten good performances some nights.
It's been average.
Their defense has been solid.
No goaltending performance in the last few games has sunk this team, which is good to see. So, and I'm sure we brought this up before, but if you're getting a solid goaltending performance, which you haven't gotten in the past, you're getting solid defensive performance like you haven't gotten in the past, this team should be off to a hot start, and it's the offense that's holding them back.
And exactly. What have we been talking about for 6 months now?
They fix the defense. They fix everything. We're good.
We were so worried, that their defense is gonna bring them down, that their goaltending is gonna bring them down, that their historically bad penalty kill is gonna bring them down. That's all turned a corner. Every single one of those. And it's completely flipped on its head. The offense is the one letting them down. It feels like their optimization of this unit is letting them down. And it's not even like you're still getting good stories, which is weird. Middlestat is playing out of his mind right now.
He's been the best forward they've had.
Paterka is giving you the breakout season that you wanted. Tage Thompson has completely changed his game. Jeff Skinner is still producing as great as ever, and
leading the team in 5-on-5 goals. I think he's got 7.
And here we are. The offense, just as a group collectively, isn't giving you much.
No. Do you think that has anything to do with some of the bottom guys?
Yeah. And I think that's pretty clear.
Yeah.
You're not getting the same production from the middle of the lineup that you did last year.
No, not at all. I don't know where to start with the forward group, man. I
do.
Okay, go ahead.
Let's start with Peyton Krebs.
Okay, that's kind of where I was going to go.
Saturday night, the Sabres... Well, why don't we start with Friday night? Matthew Savoie gets his first NHL game. And like we all anticipated, we knew it was coming. Granato told us, I think, whenever he was called up on Tuesday or Wednesday, that he was probably going to get into a game this weekend. And he announces he's going to play Friday night against the Wild. And he only ends up playing 3 minutes and 55 seconds the entire night. Which is whatever, they were protecting a lead for most of that game. They were getting outplayed. You're not going to put a 19-year-old out there while protecting a lead late. Whatever.
Yeah, that part of it didn't frustrate me.
It didn't frustrate me. It's just kind of like a whatever. They clearly, if you're talking about Savoie, I guess they just never really planned for him to stick around.
No, the second part is what frustrated me, is that they sent him down.
Well, yeah.
Immediately after.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, of course I wanted another look at him.
Yeah, of course. We got so many games of Benson. Savoie deserved a little bit more ice time than what he got before getting sent back, and that's what frustrates me the most. Yeah. Moving on. But
that's not the thing I'm going to overanalyze or give my guess as to why they did it. I'll just move past that. So Savoie gets sent down on Saturday morning. And it's pretty clear that Mattias Samuelsson is going to come off IR in his place and likely play that night. Now, we'll get to the defense, but for the forward group, Granato announces at 6 p.m. when he speaks pregame, Tuck wasn't going to be available for them, and he didn't play either two games. He didn't play either 2 games this weekend. So Granato decides to go 11 forwards and 7 defensemen. And one of the things that we were starting to talk about last episode was that Peyton Krebs was receiving less and less and less ice time at 5-on-5. He wasn't even being entrusted to protect leads like he was for a large part last year. He was Granato's go-to defensive guy in late game situations. And he wasn't even getting that this year. And you could just smell that a healthy scratch was on the horizon. And Saturday night, it came to fruition. Peyton Krebs was scratched in place of Victor Olofsson, Lucas Rusek, take your pick. Either one. So, presumably, it was a healthy scratch. We get word after the game. I don't know if it was heat of the moment. I didn't listen to the clip myself. But Granato said there was more to it, and he'll explain Monday. There's a lot to unpack here.
There's a lot of baggage going on. We don't really know what's going on either.
And that's the frustrating part, right? Like, he says there's more to it, and that's all we hear.
Like, is it an injury?
Is it an injury? Is he requesting a trade, or did he miss a team meeting or something? Why couldn't... Like, it's hard to get mad when you don't know what the answer is, but it just leads to 48 hours or so of speculation as to why he was set. But I would guess in the end it is a healthy scratch, because we've seen the warning signs that got us to this point. We saw the third periods he was being benched for. We saw the declining roles. We saw the decline in trust that Granato had for him. And so here we are. He gets scratched in place of Olofsson and Lucas Rusek.
I don't know what to say. It's a head scratcher. I mean, I get it. I get where Granato's coming from. Peyton Krebs has not had the best season so far. He's not there offensively. Defensively, he's all right. But scratching him in place of Victor Olofsson and Lucas Rusek, that's questionable, because I think Peyton Krebs brings more value to the team than either of those guys. And we'll get to the 7 defensemen in a minute, but as soon as I heard that they were running 11 forwards and 7 defensemen, like, have you ever, like, across all the years you've played in hockey, of any team you've heard of, any team you've played for, watched, 11 and 7, if you're playing for a team and you're on the bench, I know in my position, if I'm hearing the coach is going to run 11 and 7 and I'm a defenseman, I roll my eyes. I'm like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. 11 and 7, really? Because not only Darlene plays 26-ish minutes a night. Why are you running 7 defensemen? Your forwards are gassed by midway through the second period. You got Kyle Oposo, Zemgus Girgensons. I'm not trying to slander them,
I think this is where the with the Peyton Krebs thing is, it's kind of frustrating that, look, Krebs has not had a good start to this year, but neither have those two. Kyle Oposo and Zemgus Girgensons should not be playing as much as they are right now.
They've been
getting
awful.
a lot of ice time. A lot. Whenever I defended them this offseason, I said they were good defensive fourth liners that any team needs. Don Granato is playing them like top 9 forwards right now. It's killing them. It is. Casey Middlestat was like tied to their hip the whole second half of the game against Pittsburgh.
I am glad that you agree with me on this, because it's not a good look. These two guys should, leadership role or not, I don't know if that has anything to do with it either, or just them being around for as long as they have, but none of that should have any sort of impact on your decision making for who gets time on ice here. You got to be playing your big dogs big minutes. You cannot be playing the 4 guys on this team, on the forward group, that are frustrating the hell out of me right now are Victor Olofsson, Kyle Oposo, Zemgus Girgensons, and Lucas Rusek. I think all 4 of those guys are replaceable in certain capacities. First of all, I think Lucas Rusek should be sent down and they need to call Kulik up. That's number 1. Number 2, Victor Olofsson needs to be out of town yesterday because, I mean, he's just eating up a roster spot. He's not doing anything. And I know he's making $4.75 million, but just at this point, you just waive him. Like, you can't get value out of him. Other GMs, they have scouts in the buildings. They see what's going on. He's not producing like the sniper he was. He's not. NHL teams know this. And if Kevin Adams, bless his heart, if he's trying to like get some value out of him for like a pick or something, I mean, I'm for that. But if it's impacting your team in the short term right now, you got to cut your losses. He's on the books for 55 more games. They're not re-signing this guy. And then Z and G, not Z and G, Z and K, I guess. They're cooked. It's time. And it's time to move on from them when this season is over. Playoffs or not, I think they need to move on from those 2 guys.
I'll defend Girgensons to a certain point.
He's the one. He's the
earned
one guy.
He's earned enough goodwill to this point. This is an unusual start from him. This is not Girgensons as we have come to know him over time. But Oposo, he's hit the aging curve. And even then, look, teams have bad players on them. Contenders, Stanley Cup winners have bad players on them. The Colorado Avalanche won a Stanley Cup with Jack Johnson. It happens. But they weren't playing Jack Johnson in their top 4. You can't have Kyle Oposo receiving 15 to 18 minutes a night. It just can't happen. It's too much. And when you're in an 11 and 7 situation, if these guys are taking up the majority of your shifts, it's no wonder you can't generate anything offensively. Your best play, you're limiting your ceiling. And I get it. There's injuries. There's no talk. There's still no Quinn. Cousins is shaky at best right now, especially with whatever injury he has right now. They're looking for answers, and a lot of those answers are out of the lineup right now. But I know the answer is not this. It's not playing Girgensons and Okposo 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 minutes a night. It's not the answer. And I get it. How many teams have an old guy that the coach just ridiculously trusts to? It seems like there's no end to which they will trust that player. I mean, 2 years ago, friggin' Cody Eakin was this guy.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about him.
But now it seems like the Sabres have, I mean, we're going to get to the defense. I mean, we have two 35-year-olds that he clearly has some sort of trust in them. And you can lump Girgensons into that group. This offensive unit we were talking about last week, it hasn't found that lineup that they've been able to lock down as their go-to. And as I was just saying, a lot of that is the injuries. It's the fact that Jack Quinn is still out, that Cousins is playing wing in most of these games, that Alex Tuck has been in and out of the lineup. I get that. But like I said, I know the answer does not lie in 21 and 28 being essentially third-line players for this team. And that's what makes it so frustrating with Krebs. You can't tell me that in games like these, where you're looking for offensive answers, you can't at least throw some type of trust into the arms of the 22-year-old center who was once perceived as being a potential offensive contributor for a team's long-term success. That's what Peyton Krebs was for the longest time, and I'm not saying he will be, but we know what Zemgus Girgensons and Kyle Okposo are for this team, and they're fine for what they can be. But Granato is over playing the hell out of them right now.
Yeah, it's way too much. It's unreal. Honestly, I feel like anytime I was watching the game, I'd blink and they'd be out there again. And they are killing this team in the transition. They are not fast at all. I think Kyle Okposo is probably one of the slowest players I've seen in a while. And it's not his fault. He's just old now. It is what it is. This team's offensive identity was built around its speed and its ability to score quickly off the rush. And you put those guys out there, you take that away from this team.
Okay, I think we've vented long enough about the offense. Let's get to the defense. So there are two sides to any 11-7 type situation. And as Christian was kind of getting at with the offensive, or how Christian was getting at with the defensive side, how if you're a player, you kind of roll your eyes if a coach says you're going 11-7 that night as a defenseman. You know, I wanted to see if Granato was going to make a bold choice when it came to the defense group when Samuelson was lifted off IR. But I had a feeling he was going to go 7 defensemen, and that's exactly what he did. And I had a feeling that Ryan Johnson, who, if we want to jump back to the Carolina game and the Minnesota game, it just took 2 games for this kid to find himself onto the Sabres' top pair where they were trusting him in top minutes, where if you go back to the Carolina game, they're trusting him to protect a tied game with a minute to go. And I had a feeling that Granato was going to have him as the one being shafted for the most part. I had a feeling. And that's exactly what happened. Ryan Johnson, he played the least amount of time out of all Sabres players that night. Played 11 minutes and 18 seconds, all at 5-on-5. That's less than Victor Olofsson got. And if there's any telltale signs for the future with that game, Eric Comrie is coming off IR soon. Mm-hmm. They're going to have to send somebody down.
They really should not. They can't do the thing.
If Ryan Johnson gets sent down, then it continues a trend that this team has had since Jack Eichel was, I don't even think he was legally allowed to drink in the U.S. when this trend started. It started in 2018 when this team signed Victor Antipin, and he was basically the 7th guy on a team when Zach Bogosian was still getting regular ice time for the most part.
Like, I don't get what the mentality is. Are they trying to like prevent hurting feelings or something? Because it's unreal. Because even with that, I scratch my head at that, because they waived Bogosian to a certain point. It was too late at that point. They waived him, sent him to Rochester, and he was like, I'm not going to Rochester. And then
look at this trend. Okay, look at this trend. Because you're right, it was too late. And T-Pin wasn't given a fair shot. I don't even know if he was an NHL defenseman. That's not the point. Wasn't given his shot. The next year, went back to Russia. Lawrence Pilot, same thing. Played however many years in the Swedish Hockey League, a pro hockey league, was defenseman of the year in that hockey league, comes to Buffalo, plays good whenever they had him up, but they put him back in the AHL. He goes off. He goes to the KHL for a few years. Comes back. It's kind of the same thing, but not the same thing. The team's depth didn't require him anymore. He goes back to Europe. Victor Olofsson was tearing up the AHL as a 24-year-old on that, and while the Housley Sabres were sinking after the 10-game win streak, this guy's potting 30 goals as an AHL rookie, and they keep him down there. It's the same thing. You can't continue to treat guys in their mid-20s with years and years of success in these pro leagues and treat them like they're 18-year-olds.
Yeah, the road blocking, it's gotten ridiculous, and this whole fan base is screaming about wanting to give these young guys a fair shake, and I swear it better not happen to Yuri Kulik.
But like with Ryan Johnson, it's not even that it's this young guy who you're not giving the chance. You've given him the chance, and he's performed well already. He was on the top pair. He's one of your best defensemen already. You can't justify him not being in the lineup on a nightly basis unless you do not want this team to win. That you do not want this team to be best set up for success every night.
I struggle with the thought process, like coming from the top down, from the coach, GM, and everything. I don't get it. They keep making this mistake. I don't understand. What are they trying to do? Save face with some of their players? This is a business. If you're being outplayed, you don't deserve the minutes. I don't get it. That's one of the things I struggle so much with this team, because all we talk about sometimes are these young prospects, and there's one marinating in the AHL right now as a 19-year-old lighting it up. He's fourth in the AHL in points, and most of them are at even strength. He is someone you could easily use on this team right now, and yet you'd continue to ice Victor Olofsson, Kyle Oposo, Lucas Rusek, these guys. I don't understand what's going on.
And it's going to come down to 36-year-old Eric Johnson. That's what it's going to come down to. That he's the one. It's clear, okay? I understood the signing. I did. He was supposed to be the Okposo of the defense group. He's supposed to be a good contributor on the penalty kill, and he has been. He's supposed to be a guy who has been around the block. He's got his Stanley Cup ring. He's come up with a core like the Buffalo Sabres in the Colorado Avalanche. He's seen a thing or two. He knows how this group is supposed to come together. And frankly, he's one of the most well-spoken Sabres I've ever been able to experience as during my fandom. Every time he has a mic in front of his face, he says something that he says it in a way that's very profound and professional, and you understand that this guy you understand why they appreciate him. I just wish his play on the ice reflected that, but it's not. Okay, he's hit the same aging curve that every single NHL player has hit. He's 36 years old. He's a negative contributor on the ice. And that's fine. If you want a guy there for experience and like a leadership presence. I was just explaining earlier, Jack Johnson won a Stanley Cup. You can have a team with one bad guy who is in your rotation, but he cannot be the nightly player. There's no excuse for it. And if they're going to tie themselves to Eric Johnson, that makes zero sense to me, because Kyle Okposo and Zemgus Girgensons, take everything that we just said about them and you can add an asterisk to it, because at the end of the day, one of them is your captain. The other one is your assistant captain. They've been here since this team turned around 2 years ago. They were here when that locker room shifted. Eric Johnson just got here. He's a pending UFA. He's here for 1 season. You owe no loyalty to this guy. Absolutely none. He's a great dude. And like I said, I understand why they brought him in. But you cannot roadblock a first-round prospect like Ryan Johnson, who has already contributed in the way he has, for the sake of a 1-year UFA defenseman. And you can't even get me with the argument that, well, they paid him $3.25 million. Granato's been sitting a $4.75 million player since last March. You won't get me with that. They cannot tie themselves to him. You can't do it. You can't hinder this defensive group. And I'm not saying waive him. I'm not saying trade him. Just keep him as your 7th defenseman. Keep him on the team. That experience, that level of leadership that he brings in is still in the locker room. He'll still be there, and he'll still play once every few games. There's going to be defensive injuries. But there's no reason that Ryan Johnson should ever be sent down.
No, you're right.
Because of him, or healthy scratched, or being the defenseman that plays the least amount in the entire game.
No, I 100% agree with you. It all ties into the same thing we've been saying. It's just, why do they do this? I'd love to get the answer to that question. I don't understand what it is. Is it the Sabres? I feel like they're soft. Like the organization it's soft. It's like they're afraid to hurt people's feelings. I don't understand. You're running a business. It's not hard to see at all. There are people that are way, way dumber than Kevin Adams that can make that call. And I fail to understand why they do it. And I bet probably if I were to ask someone in the organization, if I ever got the chance, they'd give me some regular old scripted business answer. Like, oh, we signed him, he's going to help the team out. He does this good, this good, this good. Well, here's what these guys don't do good. And everybody in the building can see it on a nightly basis. And you are wasting these prospects just sitting on the bench in the AHL, wherever else they are. And all the fans could see it, and they can't do anything about it. And it's frustrating as hell to watch.
And the funniest part of all of this is that Granato once again reunited Dahlin and Samuelsson after Dahlin and Johnson had played so well together for those two games. And look, it has been a reliable pair the last year. It has not been good this year. Dahlin and Samuelsson have not had good results. In fact, they've had bad results. Like, it's hurting the team, the fact that this is like their go-to pair. I mean, Dahlin and Samuelsson have a 42.8 expected goal share. That's not good. That's legitimately bad. And they've played 139 minutes together. That's the worst for any pair that has played 90 minutes together. That's second worst. Second worst. You want to know what the worst is with 92 minutes logged together? It's Eric Johnson and Connor Clifton. And I know people will listen to us kind of rant about Johnson needing to be the one that's scratched. I'm sure some will turn and say Clifton needs to be scratched. He needs to be the one. I'm telling you, Clifton's numbers away from Johnson indicate that Johnson is kind of dragging him down. But with Dahlin and Samuelson, just split them up. Guess what? You have defensive depth now. If you play Ryan Johnson in the lineup, that is probably the best Sabres D-core that has existed since, I don't know, it's been God knows how long. And you can spread the wealth. You could have Dahlin and Ryan Johnson, Power and Yoki Haru. You could keep them if you want. Yoki Haru's been good. And your third pair could be Samuelson and Clifton. Look at the depth on those three pairs. It's mind-boggling. I feel like the lineup optimization is so questionable at times. The fact that you had Dahlin and Johnson together for 2 games.
And they looked great.
And they looked so good at times. Dahlin had his best game of the season against Carolina. And I think it might have been his worst against Pittsburgh. I'm not blaming that on Samuelson. I'm just saying, just break it up. Spread the wealth. Could you imagine Mateus Samuelson being the third pair guy? You know how much that helps this team? Probably.
Yeah. And not saying he gets less time on ice. You rotate the guys more frequently, and it helps the whole team because you got more fresh legs out there at times. While we were ranting, I built my in a perfect world Sabres lineup with everything in place. But we'll get to that later. I just wanted to throw that out there. So keep listening to the end of the episode, and you'll hear some of that too. But moving on.
Okay. Now that we've got all the bad out of the way,
let's bring in some good.
So
hot off the presses
on this glorious Sunday, which you would expect to be just some good time off from the team, we would get this venting in. We don't have to worry about the Bills till tomorrow night.
Ugh,
we don't have to worry about the Sabres until Tuesday. We can just take a deep breath, decompress, and me and you can come on here and vent about the team as a whole. Well, guess what? We're not done venting yet, because after the whistle, who I'm presuming was Andrew Peters, decided to tweet out a few hours ago that South Buffalo is rumbling. And there is only one thing that can mean.
A certain Casanova hockey player?
And would follow it up with the fact that Buffalo and Chicago play each other on November 19th.
This could get done.
And then just to top it all off, Chad DiDomenicis of Expected Buffalo retweets his article where he detailed what he had been hearing about Patrick Kane, which we'd already been hearing about this a few days ago. I guess I should specify that. This stuff was starting to come up. A few days ago, Chad DiDomenicis puts out that the Sabres are supposedly a team that is willing to go on a multi-year deal with Patrick Kane. And that was a few days ago. We get to this point. Andrew Peters, like I said, I'm assuming he's the one that sent out the tweet. We know he's got some sources.
Prepare, folks. It's happening.
It's becoming very imminent because we've heard that Kane wants to settle this before American Thanksgiving. Or at least that's the guess. And I want to specify that while we were recording, Chad DiDomenicis actually sent out another tweet. I guess this would calm things a bit. But I'll read off the tweet. A clear example of how things can change as stuff starts to get a little more real. I'm pumping the brakes on a 2-year offer. While still possible, I don't think that's the preference here currently. I'll have a little more background on the Expected Buffalo pod tonight. So, I guess bullet dodged is the word to put it.
Give me 3 years.
But the fact it's still on the, it's still possible. And I guess we'll just have to see what Chad has to say on the Expected Buffalo podcast. But it's becoming rather clear that we are getting closer and closer to the possibility that Patrick Kane will be a Buffalo Sabre.
It's great for jersey revenues. It's great for getting butts in the seat.
Which is just the most important
It's the
reasons
most
in
important-
signing a player,
Exactly.
Right?
Most important reason. We've made our opinions pretty clear on where we stand with Patrick Kane.
But in case you need a refresher, why don't we go into this? Because
Jesus, here we go.
I just want to put things into perspective for a second here. One of the greatest pure playmakers in NHL history got taken down by this hip replacement surgery less than a week ago. Nicholas Backstrom had to step away from the game of hockey less than a week ago with the same exact surgery that Patrick Kane got. This is not an example where you could say, oh, the last time this player received this surgery was 2015 or something. We're so much farther along in the technology, the recovery. This was a week ago. A week ago. A week ago. So one of the greatest pure playmakers that we've seen this generation had to step away from the game. And I'm supposed to expect that Patrick Kane is going to solve some big issues on this team, because that's what this is. The Sabres are not 10-2 and rolling, and maybe their one fatal flaw is the power play, or even then, maybe they're just looking for a little bit of scoring depth, and they're going to take a chance on Patrick Kane. This team is stumbling over themselves right now. They can't get anything going on the offensive side of the puck. You won't get me with, oh, they just think he's going to be a power play guy. He's coming in to help.
He's going to be playing minutes.
He's going to be getting big minutes.
He's going to be getting big minutes. And yeah, like, are we expected to believe two guys coming off injuries, Quinn and possibly Patrick Kane, are the answers to why this team isn't in the place it needs to be right now? You expect me to believe that? No, not at all. I don't believe that. This team, this forward group, it goes deeper than what the players on the ice are playing like right now. This needs a change. It needs a schematic change. It needs something. And not only that, you know what? No, I backtrack a little bit because we talked about this. It does have to do with some of the players that are on the ice, and specifically the time on ice share that they're getting. But I really think this team could do for some sort of schematic adjustment before you go anywhere into thinking, oh, we need to bring in another free agent. Because, again, circling back, there is a 19-year-old tearing up the AHL right now. Why is he still down there? And I know Rochester is injured to hell right now, but still, who cares? It's your affiliate. Call him up.
That's the funniest thing about all of this, isn't it? It's not like, okay, Benson, you had to send him back to the WHL. Savoy, you had to send him back to the WHL. You're kind of out of ideas here. You got to try something. You have a 19-year-old who is scoring most of his points at even strength, but is great on the power play. In your system, you could call him up for free. You just played a lineup with 11 forwards the other night. He's right there. And this is what they're going to choose to do.
Is it one of those things where it's so close to your face you can't see it? Because Sabres have done that a lot.
I mean, and you have to be careful because, like you said, like the Amherst are injured to hell right now. It's actually, you look at their injured list, it's kind of ridiculous.
It's like the Bills injury report.
But I don't know, just send Lucas Rusek down. He's a good player for them too. At the end of the day, you have to make a decision on what means more to you.
Yeah, just swap them. Send Rusek down and call Kulik up.
God, send Peyton Krebs down.
Yeah, even him. He could benefit the team down there.
He has a few more days of waiver eligibility, I think, of waiver exempt eligibility. Send him down, for God's sake. If you want him to get, I mean, God, he'll get so much ice time down there. You need to make a call here. You can't
keep rolling with this. It's not working.
You need some type of spark, and
you're spinning your tires right now. It's unreal. You need to move some guy. You need to do it. in the organization, not trade for someone. Because bringing in Patrick Kane coming off of hip resurfacing surgery is not going to help this team, as much as a lot of people out there believe it. And I've seen those takes, and I'm sorry, but I don't agree with any of them.
Right,
he is not helping this team if he is on this roster.
And he is
causing more harm than help, at least.
And it's so funny because whenever I'm talking about the concerns I have over this surgery that has ended multiple NHL careers, at times I'm told I just need to remember that people heal differently, that the process goes differently for everyone. And what, I'm just supposed to expect that he's going to be okay because he's Patrick Kane? That doesn't make that doesn't give me any more confidence. It doesn't. You cannot get me on that. And I'm honestly just sick of this situation. You know what it's giving me flashbacks to, which is weird? It's almost giving me flashbacks to the Eichel trade saga. Not to that level where that just felt like hopeless. But here it's like, I've been hearing about this for so long. I mean, God, I've been hearing about Patrick Kane coming to the Sabres since
we were kids.
I mean, since probably Jack Eichel's first season on this team.
Oh, yeah.
I've been hearing about this for, 8 years now. And, man, I just would never have expected this to be the regime that decided to pull the trigger. I mean, it's clear they want him. They want him.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said this, I was talking about this, I think, with JP the other night. There are 3 people in this organization that I think want Patrick Kane. There's probably like 3 people. I mean, there's probably more.
The three
it's
head
Patrick.
honchos.
It's Patrick Kane, but you probably have 3 people in this organization that really want him. Unfortunately, it's the 3 most important people in this organization. It's probably Terry Pegula, it's probably Kevin Adams, and it's probably Don Granato. Terry Pegula, he's probably wanted him for forever. I mean, he's Patrick Kane. He's going to sell tickets. He's going to help your franchise in that way. Kevin Adams, they roomed together in Chicago years and years ago.
That's wild.
And Don Granato was his coach, was the assistant coach for the Blackhawks a few years back. So there's connections with all 3 of those guys.
And all 3 of them want him. That's how I was trying to justify it, but you make a better point. I really thought it was mostly Terry wanting this because as this regime is gone, they've made significant strides in their data analytics department, and they've been very scientific with which players they go after, not just, eye tests and physicals and whatnot. Reputations. But now that you mentioned it, that makes more sense. But I still really think Terry is pushing to get this guy in the building. I know, knowing Terry Pegula and knowing how he's operated this organization over the past 12 years, he's definitely the guy who's pushing for him the hardest.
And look, I get it. Okay? It's Showtime. It's Patrick Kane. It's, for some people, someone that made them fall in love with the game of hockey. I mean, I remember back then when the Sabres were knee-deep in the tank years. I was like a half Blackhawks fan. You're a typical young kid who just likes watching good teams during those years. And I loved Patrick Kane. I did. And I know it would be such a cool moment to sign him for so many people. I know it would be so cool for people to see him wearing a goat head jersey.
It'd be cool for him, too.
The fact, for him it would probably be cool. That's something you couldn't even conceive of. Patrick Kane in a goat head jersey. Like, if you said that to someone like 5 years ago, it's like a crazy statement. I get it's a storybook moment. And frankly, if you're talking about like the wider NHL, like if you're talking different outlets, all these major hockey outlets, it's a good story for the team.
Yeah.
I mean, if you take a step back, it's a bona fide Hall of Famer with 3 cups to his name and a legacy. It's a generational legacy. It's a guy who's won so many awards and been the key contributor for so many teams, coming back to his hometown while they're on the up and up. It's going to be a good story for the team initially, and people are going to run with that. I mean, it's like after the whistle tweeted out, Buffalo versus Chicago on November 19th. What a storyline. I mean, yeah, it's a storyline, and it's going to be some goodwill for the organization.
You know what this kind of reminds me of? This is kind of similar to when the Maple Leafs signed Eric Lindros, like well after he was cooked. It's like he was so good for the Flyers and the organization he played for a while, and then he's from London, right by Toronto. That was his hometown team. He went back to Toronto. He was cooked. It's going to be the same thing, I think. I think it's a cool moment for the organization. It's a cool moment for that player because you're fulfilling a lifelong dream of playing for your hometown team. But at the end of the day, this is a business. You're in the business of winning hockey games. Patrick Kane will probably do more harm than goodwill with this hockey organization if he plays big minutes.
And that's the thing, right? Like, he's going to play big minutes.
Yeah.
We've made the comparison jokingly that he's basically just Victor Olofsson. And while that is still kind of true, I mean, if they're bringing Patrick Kane in, I mean, yeah, they want him to solve the 5v5 issues like we said, but he's probably primarily here to fix the power play, which is at like 10.2% right now, which is a whole other thing.
Feels like it should be way lower than that.
And supposedly they're bringing him in here to do that. At least Victor Olofsson, Granato, has gotten to the point where he's scratching him most of these games. Do you think they're ever going to get to that point with Kane?
No.
You think they'll ever decide to scratch him? Probably not.
Probably not.
Probably not.
They'll keep him around the lineup as long as they can, especially if he's on a multi-year deal. If he's on a multi-year deal, you can kiss the fact of him getting scratched this season goodbye because he's not at all.
And my thing is, I don't even think he's that good on the power play. I don't think it's personnel that's just going to fix this problem. We've said it before. It's probably more philosophical.
Yeah.
They need to do more things than throw a 35-year-old on there to change stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Man.
What a mess.
Yeah.
What a mess of a weekend.
What should we move on to now? Should we try and get something positive in? Is there anything positive to talk about?
I think the people could use another edition of This Team Stinks.
We are back with This Team Stinks. And I made a promise to someone for what team is on the list for this week. Because for this installment of This Team Stinks, we have the Edmonton Oilers. Man, were we recording yet when they lost to the Sharks?
We were not. I did tune into that game live, as did many other people, because everyone wanted to see Edmonton lose to the Sharks because it would just be the funniest thing ever. And that's exactly what happened in regulation.
3-2. Just atrocious. Just the absolute worst case scenario you could start for with the Edmonton Oilers. A cup contender classified at the beginning of the season. And they start off just abysmally. And they hit the cellar with that loss to the Sharks.
And you would have thought that probably would have been the end of Woodcroft if there was ever a time to fire him. There was that clip going around. People were trying to lip read what he was saying to his assistant. But there was no immediate move. And then the Oilers go in and beat the Seattle Kraken the next game. So you're thinking, okay, maybe
they're turning it around.
Maybe a bit of a turnaround, maybe. And then we get news earlier today, Woodcroft would be relieved of his duties as head coach.
Man, that's arguably worse than going out on a loss. It's like you go out on a loss, you're like expecting it, and then you take the team, you just continue to do your job. You take the team into another visiting arena and you win. And you think you're turning it around, and then Kenny Money comes around and he comes to roost and he takes your job from you. Man, and then Ken Holland had a presser, just underwhelming. Doesn't seem like they have any sort of identity. Their identity is there, but they can't find it. The problem is they're trying to, I don't know, maybe they're trying to do too much, do too little, but it
doesn't help that the greatest player on the earth is
exactly
not playing well. Well, I shouldn't say not playing well. He's hurt. He's so obviously hurt.
Yeah.
He's not even taking faceoffs right now.
I can confidently say that this team stinks. They stink.
Okay. Well, as always, we asked for some of your questions or your own thoughts to make us discuss, and given the weekend that the Sabres had, there was quite a few inquiries submitted to us. So we'll jump into some of those to close here, although there were a lot of questions and topics submitted, so we might be here a little bit. So we actually have a triple header here from JD Buffalo. He actually replied to our tweet 3 separate times, so we'll go into those. So firstly, he asks, I'd be interested in your thoughts on roster management. How much of the blame do you put on the coach, and how much of it is on the GM? At what points is it incumbent upon Adams to stop giving Donnie the option to play guys like Olofsson by trading him or putting him on waivers? This is an interesting one. Who do you blame more? I mean, there's blame to go around to both. I mean, I don't want to imply that like either of them are on the hot seat or anything or in danger of being fired at this moment, because they're not. But Granado's lineup optimization to start the year, how the power play has sunk the team, how the overall lineup decisions, especially over the past week or so, have just been so questionable. And yet at the same time, a lot of it is Adams. He is choosing to leave Kulich in the AHL. He may be the one to send Ryan Johnson back to the AHL if it happens. And he is the one going after Patrick Kane. So to this point, I will put more blame on Donnie, because this is still largely the same group that he had last year, and he's the one toying with it in a certain way.
Yeah, he's making the day-to-day personnel decisions. Like, I'm sure Adams has some say, but he's probably more of an overall vision type of guy. Like, it's your job for your coach to ice your best players and put them in the right positions. And yeah, I don't think, and you know what? I don't think Donnie's making a good case for himself right now as a head coach. He's not. It's not it right now, man.
JD then goes on to ask, how is it remotely excusable to continue to keep Kulich in Rochester when you're struggling to score?
We have just discussed. We answered your question, buddy, already.
To put it bluntly, it's inexcusable.
It is.
There's no excuse for it at this point. And to close it off, he asks, what will it take for Adams to actually take a swing? He has the deepest asset pool in the league, a team with obvious holes, a core that's locked up, and it's past time to win. What we are seeing now is inexcusable, and that message needs to be sent via action, not words. He's taken the swing.
Yeah.
If for the people that support Patrick Kane, I don't want to hear any complaints about if Adams is stagnant at the deadline this year. Here's your big swing, right? You wanted this guy. Here he is. And for the people that don't support Kane, I don't know when that move is coming. I mean, because right now is not the time you would ever want to make a panic move, right? Like, would you consider this to be the low point of the season?
As of right now, probably one of them. I think it started on a low point, and I think we're kind of back there. I think overall, I mean, you look at the standings. I mean, they're still 500. It's not a it's not an Edmonton Oilers start to the season here we're having. I mean, the team's right there. They just got to figure it out soon, because this league will eat you alive. And I don't know. I'm running out of ideas here.
Don Postholes asks, at what point does Don Granato land on the hot seat officially?
Sooner rather than later, as of right now. I mean,
I think if they miss the playoffs and they do a 16-17 Sabres where they follow up a very hopeful end to the season like the 15-16 Sabres were, and they follow up with a disappointing campaign that was kind of riddled with questionable lineups decisions and bad special teams. Although, not that Bilesma's last year had bad special teams. That power play came in first in the NHL. But if they have a questionable year like that, then he gets put on the hot seat.
Yeah.
I think kind of going into the next season. And then if the following season they get off to a slow start, then you're going to have serious questions about his job.
Yeah.
Am I going to put him on the hot seat now? No.
Mm-mm.
He's earned way too much goodwill. Way too much. This team has exceeded point projections the last 2 years by like 10, 15 points. He's earned too much goodwill to be placed on the hot seat after a 500 start. It's not, like you said, this isn't a code red. This isn't worst case scenario where the team is bottoming out once again to start the year. So this one is from Carson. Carson asks, does Oki become a regular scratch after Tuesday?
Hey, we've discussed that before too. I mean, I hope he is, but I don't think I see it.
I mean, we just talked about for however long that he's being played like a top 9 forward some nights. Do we really think he's going to scratch him?
No.
Like immediately after? I don't think so. It's frustrating because I've mentioned multiple times already on this podcast, like, that teams have players like him where they're, I don't know, bottom of the lineup, they're not really contributing much, and yet the coach keeps him in. I mean, we were laughing at Toronto for Ryan Reeves, but they finally scratched him.
Yeah.
And look what happened. They won a game. The guy they replaced him with had 2 points. You know, at some point you got to make the tough call. If he's not helping the team, he's not helping the team.
You got to sacrifice the vibes to win some games.
So this one is from the real Matt Bowen. He asks, are you worried about Cousins?
No. I mean, he's fighting through a little bit of a rough patch. I mean, he just got punched in the face pretty hard. But I've seen what Cousins can do in the past. I'm not worried about him long term, but I mean, he could go through a little bit of a rough patch, but I'm not worried about him in the long term. He's important to this team.
I alluded to it earlier, how I don't really agree that they're putting him on the wing in some of these games. I don't think that's the answer.
They're Reinhardting him.
Yeah, a little bit, honestly. That's kind of the best way to put it. I think this team, as much as Middlestead has been a godsend, you're better off putting Cousins in the position he's succeeded the past 3 seasons. If he's struggling, let him figure it out in that spot. Don't try to top load and put him over or put him on the wing with Tage. So that's what I would say. I'm not worried per se, but it's been a kind of mediocre start by his standards. So this one is from a friend of the podcast. His name is JP Aarons. And he says, you can't tell me that Pilot wouldn't be better than Eric Johnson. The love affair never ends, does it?
No. That's a good question. I think they'd both be rotational guys. But, nah, Eric Johnson's been in the league too long. I think I would take, in a very, very, very slim margin, I'd take Eric Johnson over Pilot just because Eric Johnson brings value to this penalty kill.
He would jump across the table to attack you right now if JP was here.
JP's not here, so that's what he gets for not showing up. I can make my own opinions, and I could talk crap about him, and he can't do anything about it.
This one is from J_JWall39. And they ask, are the Sabres in trouble? Even with decent goaltending, they still stink. I think we've kind of alluded to the factors on this team that have brought them to this 500 record. The factors that have brought them up to it. Their defense has been good. Their goaltending has been solid most nights. Their penalty kill has been a good story. It's just their offense. And it's whether or not how much you think this offense can rebound that goes into whether or not you should be worried.
I don't know if it's even a matter of rebounding. Has it even bounded yet?
Well, I just mean from last season, I suppose.
They gotta figure it out.
I mean, I feel like we've said it before, there's just so much talent there.
There's too much talent for it to be going like this right now.
Okay. We'll finish with this one. This one is from Ian Whitmer. Ian asks, will the Sabres ever bring me joy?
I've asked myself that question so many times. I just think about it. I'm like, one day it'll be immaculate. But I've been waiting for that day for a long time, probably over 10 years.
It goes back to this tweet that I remember seeing. I think it was from a hockey account. And it goes, people think the point of sports is to be happy and celebrate your team winning championships. And that's where people are wrong. It's to suffer with a group of people that all share the same common interest as you.
That's exactly right.
And I think that's the best way to put it. It's all about suffering. How much can you tolerate? Hey, we've been in worse places as a Sabres fan,
Again, we're 500. A lot of talent on this team. We could turn it around as soon as Tuesday.
There's still good stories to go around.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It'll all work itself out when they sign Patrick Kane.
They're not bringing me joy right now, though. I would have to ask if Patrick Kane were to have been signed, I guess, today or tomorrow. Where does this rank in terms of like worst weekends for this iteration of the Sabres? 2 lifeless performances. Sure, they come away with a win, but
I mean, it probably goes back to
the Krebs scratch. If you signed Kane, I don't know, just the injuries mounting up and the noise around the team, the disappointment.
You think it comes into consideration with that 8-game losing streak they had last year?
Oh, man.
I don't think it's that bad.
But I think it just comes with the expectations we've had this year.
Yeah, the expectations make the disappointment worse. I'm sure. I have faith they'll figure it out. While we were recording, I made like a little bit of like a mock lineup, just off the top of my head on the fly, like in a perfect world where I think the Sabres would be. And let me preface by saying Rusick would be sent down, Olofsson would be waived, Benson, Savoy are in the W. So we're going to start right there. So eliminate those 4 guys. This is how it would go. Skinner, Thompson, Tuck. It's your first line. That I think it's always been your first line. They found each other, came back. Quinn, Cousins, Peterka. Reunite the kids line. Greenway, Mitz, Yuri Kulik as your third line. And then your fourth line is Girgensons, Krebs, and Brandon Biro.
Huh. I'm not seeing a certain free agent in there.
Oh, don't you worry. I have him right here. Rotating in with Oposo is Patrick Kane. And then on defense, again, in a perfect world, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but this is my lineup. Darlene Johnson, Ryan Johnson, Power and Yoki, Samuelson, Clifton, Eric Johnson rotating in, and then you got Levi, and then UPL and Comrie, again, rotating in.
I can get on board with that lineup.
That is my lineup in a perfect world. Am I forgetting anyone?
I don't believe so. Jost? Was Jost in there?
Oh, I forgot. I
forgot Tyson Jost. Come on, man.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Now you gotta back to the drawing board.
Sub out Biro for Jost.
Okay, there you go.
I knew I was forgetting someone too, and I went back. I was like, "Am I forgetting anyone in this lineup?" And I thought I had everyone. My apologies, Tyson Jost. You know what? I'll do this. Because what I think it's gonna happen. They might send Krebs down. You put Jost into that spot, but you just rotate Jost in with those guys. So I guess I could put Oposo / Patrick Kane / Jost. And I think that's your whole roster, basically. That's everyone.
Yeah.
And I mean, if let's say it's 1 over, you got to throw a goalie down. That's it. Take one of the goalies, pick them, UPL Comrie, send them down.
Okay. So to close here, I'm kind of gonna go off of that into something I didn't think I would ever have to ask on this podcast. But you were just talking about a perfect world. Let's talk about a not so perfect world, as in maybe tomorrow or Tuesday or Wednesday or whenever. Let's say in 5 minutes, the Buffalo Sabres sign Patrick Kane. It happens. Don't worry about the contract. It is what it is. With this current lineup, with the people you have on hand, let's say Tuesday night, who is Patrick Kane playing with?
If Tuck is still sore,
Let's say Tuck is healthy. Tuck is healthy.
Okay.
Is healthy.
I think he's playing with Cousins and Peterka.
You think it's going to be Kane, Cousins, Peterka?
Mm-hmm. Probably.
You don't think they throw him with Tage Thompson by chance?
I think they'd start him with Cousins and Peterka, unless let's say if they really wanted to break up the first line again, which I don't think they should do, especially if Tuck comes back healthy.
He loves doing it though.
Yeah, I could see a Skinner, Thompson, Kane line.
Oh, man. Thank God Thompson has been so good defensively, dude.
He
will be so. Oh my God!
Imagine that,
having to drag those two on opposite wings. Just the worst defensive lineup you could possibly ice. I just can't believe we're talking about. I really never thought it would get to this point. I said it earlier. I can't believe this regime that, and I'm not. And I'll try to step away from like in a negative light, and I will just try to be objective here. It is genuinely surprising they would go this route because it goes against everything Adams has talked about. Like from an objective point of view, he has always preached, we're not going to roadblock young guys. We're not going to roadblock young guys. And, Patrick Kane being signed, it would do that. It would. Especially if Kulik stays down. It would do that. And I don't agree with that. All I'm saying is it is surprising that this regime has interest in doing that. It is very surprising it's gotten to this point. Yeah. But I will close with this final thought. If I wake up tomorrow morning or Tuesday morning or whatever, and Patrick Kane is a Buffalo Sabre, he's officially on my team, which means I have to root for him. And I will root for him to work out well with the Sabres.
I'll root for the greatest comeback of a player we will ever witness.
Make me eat my words.
Yes, me too.
I will be... If 2015 Art Ross or Hart Trophy Patrick Kane comes out of nowhere, God, I will be so happy to be wrong.
Oh my goodness! Could you imagine?
That would be crazy. I will apologize for any remark I have made against Patrick Kane to this point.
I'll do you one further. I will buy his jersey. If he comes back and he is playing efficient hockey, he's putting the puck in the net and playing okay defensively, and make a case for me to buy his jersey.
Okay.
I
was going to say, I'm holding you to that.
Hold me to it. I'm sure we'll iron out the specifics of it.
Yeah.
But you can hold me to that.
So it's still got to happen. It's still got to happen.
And anyone listen to this podcast or follows our account, hold me to it as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think
that's enough.
Do we feel good?
I don't feel great. I mean, I feel better I feel like I'm leaving therapy. Get it all out. But, it is what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's enough rambling for today.
I'm just worried. I'm worried we haven't reached the breaking point, per se.
You think there's more to this? You think
Well,
we
I
go
mean,
deeper?
last year's breaking point, I guess there were 2 of them.
The 8-game losing streak was
8-game, the game against the 8th straight loss against Toronto, that was a breaking point. They go on, they scored 13 goals in their next 2 games, and they were off. And I guess the second breaking point was
the Chicago loss.
No, I wouldn't go that. I would probably say maybe the Dallas loss.
Yeah,
because then I think they won 2 straight. I think they lost one, but then Devin Levi got there, and then they were off. It doesn't feel like they're at a breaking point just yet. I hope they have. I hope we don't need a breaking point. I hope they can just turn it around. All right.
We'll see.
So, looking ahead here, this Tuesday, it's Kyle Okposo's 1,000th game.
Big congrats to him.
Yep. Huge accomplishment. Very cool. He's celebrating it with the Sabres.
Yes.
Boston is in town for that game, so that's a big one.
Oh, boy. Boston. They'll never die.
Friday, the Sabres are in Winnipeg.
Okay.
And Sunday, they play Chicago. Could be the Patrick Kane return. Who knows? In any case,
could I get 2-1? 2-0-1, please.
Yeah, you definitely got to beat the Blackhawks. I feel like you got to beat the Jets.
Sneak a point away from the Bruins.
And get one from the Bruins. It's Okposo's 1,000th game. Show up for the guy.
3-0, baby.
God knows he's shown up for this organization.
I will take
He deserves that.
3-0.
3-0 week. Let's turn things around here. This is the turning point.
Next week. So the season's over.
Well, it's so funny. With the Chicago game being Sunday night at 7:00. I do wonder if we end up recording after then or not. But it brings back memories to the last time they played Chicago in Chicago, and we recorded after that.
If Patrick Kane signs this week with the Sabres, I will record after the game on Sunday.
It brings back memories to JP breaking popcorn.
Slammed that thing, just destroyed
slamming these popcorn bowls, and
your
roommate screaming in the other room because I think he had money on the game or something. Okay, but we'll either talk to you Sunday night after that game, or we will talk to you probably Monday.
Yeah, Sunday or Monday. It's usually that'll probably be our recording days going forward.
Mm-hmm. And we should have JP back next week.
Yeah. JP should be back full time next week.
Yes. So look forward to that. In any case, if you want to follow us on Twitter, follow us at the Sabre Report. Follow us on Instagram at the Sabre Report. If you want updates for the pod, follow us at Sabre Report Pod. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on TikTok. Quick shout out to anybody that sent in any questions. I'm sorry if I didn't specifically read yours out loud. For a lot of those, we did cover them earlier in the episode, but thanks for submitting them anyways. Feel free to leave a review.
And I think that might be it right there.